things we learned today into practice. So I'm going to start. Hello, beautiful people. It's so fascinating to see such similar takes on people and experience through so many different lenses, whether it's the classroom, beautiful cities like Portland, and certainly museums. So such an honor to talk to you today. So many times we are faced with answering a question. I get this a lot. I'm sure you might answer this or ask the question, tell me about your culture, right? Why should I work at a place like Apparatus? And this is what someone might say. Hey, look, we have these great people and it's so fun, and we work hard and we party hard, and we have a foosball table and some really good health benefits and even food on Mondays, right? Raise your hand if you've heard answers like that before in describing corporate culture, right? It is such a meaningless answer, right? Take any company, put those cool words in it, and you have an answer regarding culture. And what's pretty phenomenal about this very reused answer as to what our culture is about, or any culture is about, is that it's missing perhaps the number one ingredient about culture, which is people, right? So it doesn't talk about people, hardly at all. You do know that they work hard and party hard, but that's about all you get about people. And so this is an image. I spent some time in Silicon Valley, and certainly through the uprising of the first tech boom out there, but this is a real life photo from Google, one of this world's kind of greatest companies. They're doing awesome work. Definitely pushed some agenda items ahead in the world of people and talent management. And it's really, really easy to answer these questions with the what instead of the who, right? So we might point out, oh my goodness, we have great coffee, and there's a snack bar, and people playing foosball, right? And that's a really kind of what I call an easy way of explaining what someone's culture is about as companies grow. But isn't it a lot more interesting to know, why are they all there? Why do they even care to be there today? Who is that person that's so confidently drinking coffee by herself? That's kind of a hard thing for me to do sometimes. And would it be okay for me to wear that printed shirt over that mock turtleneck at Apparatus, right? And all of a sudden, I care a whole heck of a lot more, right? Why are these people here? But when we talk about culture, we forget to talk about the people and how they connect and the shared experience that they might have. And so I'd like to talk to you today about shifting our answers to these questions and answering with the what and focusing more on the who. It just thrilled my heart to hear Scott, right, who helps run a beautiful place in a museum. And for even him to say that you have to put the people in front of the objects, just made my heart warm and inspired me, and really made me want to go rewrite my whole talk, but I didn't have time for that, so here we are. So thanks to everyone for your inspiration. So people and connection and experience. And if we rephrase these questions from the what to the who, we can even reflect this as we talk about the city of Indianapolis. And I think that's kind of a fun thing to do. So let's say we're out looking for great talent, and I run into Lisa from the East Coast. And Lisa says, what do people do there? And I think, oh my goodness, well, we've got this great restaurant called Bluebeard, and sometimes we go to movies, and it's really fun, right? And it's totally defensive posturing, right? And so I would urge you to try to reframe this question from the what and focus on the who, but really dig deeper, because here's what I think Lisa really means. I think what Lisa means is, are there people that I can do things with that will engage with me and share experiences with me? Do we really care about the building? The buildings are requirements, the restaurants are requirements, but they don't win us at the end of the day. And so try this, one of my favorite games to play. Well, Lisa, we have a lot to offer. What is it that you like to do? And Lisa might say, well, if I didn't think the word was overused, I'd call myself a foodie, and I really like microbreweries, especially the ones in Brooklyn. And I might be throttled and say, oh my goodness, Brooklyn is actually a pretty cool town. I feel a little threatened. But I'm immediately thinking through my mental Rolodex, who can I connect Lisa to? Not just the restaurant, but who is it that I'm going to take to the Libertine with me to show Lisa the unique characteristics of our city through our people. And maybe just for a little extra credit, I'll convince my friend Clay to go and wax poetic on microbreweries. So do y'all feel the difference? And I'd urge you to, as you're talking about the city, to talk about the who people can do things with and dig under the question. And what you'll find is that instead of feeling like you're back on your heels trying to describe Indianapolis, you'll start to lean forward and you'll be on your toes. So people, so what happens? Like when you're growing a company or an organization, like everybody's first set of hires feels something like this, the conversation. It's like, Bill, I know we can do great things together. We're gonna go solve this enormous problem. We're gonna have a great experience, and we might change the world if we're lucky while we're doing it. But by the time we get to employee number 65,000 at year 20, the sale becomes something like this. We're a really great place to work. We have foosball tables, and won't you join this experience because of our great health benefits, right? Why does that change? Like, why does it change? And sure, do you need benefits, and do we need perks, and do we need health benefits and gym memberships? And we do. You know why? Because the journey is hard, the struggle is strong, and we have to have the Gatorade stations to get ourselves there. But folks, those are requirements, right? They are necessary, but not sufficient in order to be a great organization. And so as you grow, you need more Gatorade stands, you need more stations. But what happens is we start searching somewhere here, we start searching for easier answers, right? And those easy answers start being things like Gatorade versus defining your culture and your mission and your shared experience together and the great people you're gonna do it with. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about struggle, because all too often, I think when we're growing a business or thinking about an organization or thinking about our city, we wanna move to the easy answers. And we wanna point to how beautiful Lucas Oil Stadium is instead of pointing to the things that matter and the things that we might do together at Lucas Oil Stadium. And so what I'd say is embrace the struggle, because it's never gonna go away, particularly if you care about growing. So embrace it, acknowledge it. Honestly, I'd kiss it, hug it, and make out with it, because it's not going away. You gotta get really comfortable with the struggle. And if you dig deep into that struggle, you'll start asking yourself, I think, some more profound questions. So how do I kind of keep these things in mind? Well, one is I'm learning from people all the time. This kind of whole shift from what to who happened early in my life by managers during my internship shaking me and telling me what was really important. It happened through having some interactions with people like Jim Collins, who preach the same thing. It happened by seeing our VP of Talent Management, Kelly Lavin, really push the leadership team to think about things differently. And so as you go through this curve, how do you think about people instead of the objects and the what and the benefits? And I've got one reminder I'd like to leave you with, okay? So this is a real organization that's scaled across 20 years from 10 interesting people to now 65,000 people who've created an awesome culture in the desert, all right? Burning Man has grown from 20 people to 65,000 people over 20 years. Do you think the 65,000th person was recruited by the following statement? Hey, we've got great water cooling stations, right? Not at all. They're these crazy, interesting people that show up in the middle of the desert. They're doing it in the middle of the desert. They've created this culture of connection and shared experience. And so what I argue is you gotta struggle with it. You gotta ask the deep questions. You have to define your values so you know who you're looking for and who you're not looking for. Because this culture is not for everyone, but a culture for everyone is not for anyone. So my friends, remember, you have to have Gatorade in the desert to survive, but it takes the people to have a party and maybe something more interesting to drink than Gatorade. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you for that. We all do need our Gatorade, but I think it's more important to think about who's at the party, right? So when you guys are thinking about who's at your party, what are you trying to do at Apparatus?
So I think first and foremost, it's been like kind of struggling with the deeper questions of who are the people that we need to climb that mountain together. And we've shared with you earlier, like it's this notion of if you did go climb a mountain with me, and you did it with great people, you'd remember the experience and remember climbing the mountain and how you felt, but you probably wouldn't remember the agony you felt between whether you wanted to wear a Patagonia jacket or a North Face coat.
I hope
right?
not.
I hope not.
People in the audience might feel differently.
So we really try to dig deep and figure out what matters by defining our values, and it's things like others orientation, because we need nice, helpful people. It's people that share a passion for technology. It's knowing what you don't need, which is in our world, kind of a non-starter is being a brilliant jerk, because you have to be able to teach and make the people around you better. So we've worked hard at kind of defining those things and then giving people a platform to guide our culture.
I love that. One question just came through that I love. Are there differences between recruiting millennial employees and Gen X employees?
Oh my, so many. And my Widow's Peak was started here and probably moved here through the process of understanding how to work with and recruit millennials. You know, the thing about millennials, and it's a term we hear about all day, you know, millennials are achieving more than I think we've ever dreamed, could be achieved at such a young age. So I think it's perhaps thinking about how you explain your culture and letting them be a part of the process. I like to use really horrible analogies, so I'll use one of curling, right? So curling, you're heaving this big block, and I think that's kind of, these are these 23 and 24-year-olds that have so much momentum coming out of the gates. And we can't take this hierarchical view to define culture for them. They have to be a part of the story. They're actually the juggernaut, right? Not the leadership team. So all we can do is take that little broom and kind of nudge it along, but we have to make sure that they feel empowered and feel that momentum as part of the organization.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, you know, I think this is another really important question for this whole day, but when you are recruiting around the country, and we've had this conversation, what comes to mind? Just take yourself out of that role, but like on a day-to-day basis, what are Indy's strengths?
Yeah, I think we've heard about this a lot through the process at Indy Velocity and other places, but this kind of theme of accessibility, right? And Scott touched on it as well about maybe reasons as to why he's here, but you know, the thing about accessibility is that it's a catalyst. You can help build things faster. And I think if you're excited about building and continuing to build this great city, I think, you know, having your shovel ready and helping us get there is something that's really exciting about Indianapolis, and I think non-apologetic. And if you're fine with a place that's already arrived, say our friends in San Francisco, hey, that's great too, right? I mean, a culture isn't going to be for all types, but I think we need to embrace the builders and then give them the accessibility they need to create things like Pattern and create those organizations that are going to help move us forward.
Yep. No, that's very good. And this is another great one that just came through. How can employees influence their own corporate leaders to understand the importance of corporate culture
Sure.
and who?
Yeah.
So you get this.
Yeah.
You and Kelly Flederer and the entire leadership team at Apparatus get this. What about those companies that maybe don't get it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would reflect about this notion of kind of what's necessary versus, you know, what's the order taker versus the order winner. And, you know, sometimes if you're faced with a leader who you're having trouble kind of engaging with, but you really want to help the company move forward, you know, who can you encourage them to go talk to get some third-party advice, right? I think that might be, if the direct path's not working, you know, what other kind of methods can we use to kind of prod and poke people in a different direction?
What's your defining factor for finding the optimal employee for your culture?
Defining factor. So, you know, part of it is, I think, about asking different questions, right? So, you know, we are a hardworking culture, and you know, we'll ask questions, for example, like, you know, what was your first job? And you'd be surprised at how much you understand about an engineering student or someone with some analytical capability if they're also telling you that they've been in the service industry since they were 13 years old. And it really brings out a different perspective about that person, and you start leaning in and wanting to work with that person and know that if they were sitting by your side, that this job, you know, being a lifeguard captain when they were 15 is just as relevant to their engineering degree. Then it's funny to see their faces because they're like, why are you asking me so much about my jobs when I was 13 and 15 years old? But I really think that some of the kind of the fabric of who they become starts back then. And if you look at the studies on grit, a lot of that stuff is actually, you know, kind of baked at very early ages.
One question that did just come through too, what's the best way to facilitate people making connections? And this is probably getting down to that nitty gritty of introducing people to the city,
Sure.
but how do you do that in a way that's not awkward?
Yeah. I mean, I think introductions in their nature can feel kind of awkward. I think you have to believe that it's meaningful. I'll use an example that comes close to home that's at the company level, and certainly we have a bias, but you know, there are great ways to leverage technology to get people connected. You know, we use an internal social collaboration site that, you know, what a corny name, but it's so powerful, and my favorite part about it is it's not riddled with kind of company messaging. What makes my kind of heart sing is seeing you know, employees start a cycling club and a tabletop game night, and none of these are corporate defined activities. They're doing it on their own, and they're finding their meaningfulness, and they're going out and they're testing new beers together, and those are those depressurizing moments that we all need so we can make sure that we make it in this journey.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you.
This is great.